The primary bedroom in Nick and Amaya's new house was in rough shape. We even nicknamed it the Shrek Shack because of its awful green carpet, stained walls, and tired old ceiling fan. But underneath all that, the room had great potential. It's a good size with three windows and a cute window seat. So we got to work ripping up the carpet, choosing a bold new paint color, and adding lots of thrifted finds to turn it into a cozy space for my son and his sweet wife. And honestly, I think this makeover is the most dramatic transformation I've ever done. And I can't wait for you to see the final result. Although some people suggested we paint first, we couldn't wait to get rid of that awful green carpet. It was so old that it literally ripped into strips, and the weird orange padding underneath did the same. We had it taped up and on the curb in less than 30 minutes. However, it took a few hours to pry up all the tack strips and pull up the staples that had held the padding in place. We were crossing our fingers that the hardwood floors would be in good condition, and we were not disappointed. For a 100-year-old house, they looked fantastic. Now I was ready to paint. There is something so satisfying about peeling out the dried paint from my repaint tray. Then I poured in Sherwin-Williams Smokehouse, a warm brown color that Amaya and I chose at the paint store at the last minute. Since the kids can only help me on the weekends, Marcus, a family friend, kindly helped me paint this room. He even primed the walls first to cover all the existing stains. Amaya wanted to color drench the room, which means painting the walls, all the wood trim, and the ceiling in the same color. We did paint the baseboards and closet doors brown, but Marcus and I convinced her to leave the ceiling and window trim white, at least for now. The baseboards needed some quarter round added to conceal the damage caused by the tack strips, and I wanted to get the longest size available to create a seamless appearance. So I had to stick them out the sunroof to fit them in my car. As I cleaned the floor around the baseboards, I found four old wheat pennies in the vent. Two of them were from the 1940s and two were from the 1920s. I bought new vent covers because the old ones were in terrible shape and hardly any air was getting through. But to get them to fit, I had to remove about an inch from the baseboard, which damaged the plaster, but luckily the new cover will conceal the damage. Quarter round is pretty easy to install. You only need to cut 45-degree angles on the ends where two pieces meet up in the corners. I also cut the quarter round at an angle when two pieces join together along the wall, because this makes the seam less noticeable than a straight cut. To finish it off and create a seamless appearance, you'll want to apply caulk along the top of the molding, in the nail holes, and in the corners. While the caulk dried, I still needed to get the second vent cover installed. I used a utility knife to mark where the cover overlapped with the baseboard. Then I used an oscillating tool to cut through the baseboard along that mark. This blade can get into small spaces, so I was able to cut off just a small piece of baseboard without damaging the plaster this time. Once the caulk was dry, I painted the quarter round with the same smokehouse brown paint to match the baseboards and walls. It's really hard to paint quarter round in place, so you might want to paint it before you install it. Otherwise, you'll need to tape off the floor. The kids currently have mostly hand-me-down bedroom furniture, and Amaya really wanted a matching set. So I found this four-piece solid wood bedroom set on Facebook Marketplace for $200. That's just $50 a piece. One of the drawers appeared broken, but the track on the bottom just needed to be screwed back in. Even though the wood was in decent shape, we decided to go ahead and paint them to give them a more contemporary appearance. To get the wood as clean as possible, I used a TSP substitute and super fine steel wool to remove dirt and grease and to degloss the surface. It did a good job, but I would still recommend using regular TSP if you are planning on painting kitchen cabinets, which are naturally more grimy. For paint, I decided to try Beyond Paint, an all in one paint sold at Lowe's and on Amazon. It claims that you don't need to sand or prime first. It had the weirdest consistency of any paint I've ever used, almost gel like, but it went on super smooth with a roller and it covered completely in two light coats. And due to its gel consistency, it didn't run at all. Since the dark knobs would blend in with the black paint, I cleaned the knobs really well, primed them, and spray painted them gold. Before we arranged the furniture in the room, we still needed to give the floor a good cleaning. Can I just point out again that these floors are 100 years old and they are in fantastic condition? Once the furniture was placed, I brought in a large rug that was once in my primary bedroom. I bought it at Goodwill for maybe $50 or $60 when they had received a bunch of clearance rugs from Target. This one is actually from the Hearth and Hand collection. We also brought in a swivel chair from their current home. I always thought this chair was gray, but in this brown room, now it looks beige. My son wanted to keep the ceiling fan, and Amaya wanted a pretty light fixture, but I think we can make them both happy. So Amaya and I took down the 1990s fan, and it didn't even crash to the floor, which I was fully expecting. Then I installed a fandelier, a combination fan chandelier that we found on Amazon for under $100. It was surprisingly easy to install, much easier, I'm sure, than the original ceiling fan that I had just removed. The kids insisted on getting a king size bed. I wanted to find one on Facebook Marketplace, but Amaya really had her heart set on a fully upholstered white platform bed. When Nick and Amaya bought their new house, one of the first things they wanted was a new mattress. They had been sleeping on a really small bed and were ready for an upgrade. And I recommended Brooklyn bedding because that's the mattress that my husband and I sleep on. And I really think it's made a difference in the quality of our sleep. Nick and Amaya took Brooklyn Bedding's sleep quiz, and it matched them with a medium firm Aurora Luxe cooling mattress. The whole process was so simple. The mattress arrived right at their door in a box, and within minutes, it was unrolled and set up in their new bedroom. One of the reasons I feel comfortable recommending them is that Brooklyn Bedding has been making mattresses since 1995. Every single one is designed, assembled, and shipped straight from their Arizona factory. So you get premium quality without the big price tag. And here's the best part. You get a 120-night sleep trial, a limited lifetime warranty, and free shipping in the US. So if you're ready to upgrade your sleep with a Brooklyn Bedding mattress, use the link in my description box and the code Canterbury Cottage to get 30% off your order. The bed and most of the bedding may be new, but the bench at the end of the bed is another Facebook Marketplace find, but I don't think anyone will guess because it looks brand new. After 2 coats of gold spray paint and a clear sealer, the knobs were ready to put back on the dressers. I continue to be amazed by how much paint can change the appearance of furniture. The previous owners had installed blinds in the windows, but one was broken, and with all the hard edges of the furniture, the room really needed the softness and texture that fabric drapes can add. I installed the same inexpensive black curtain rods from Walmart that I used in the living room. I was planning on using the tan colored drapes from the bedroom in the kids' current rental home, but even with the curtain rods attached as close to the ceiling as possible, the drapes were too long. So I pinned up one panel to use as a model so I could take them home to hem on my sewing machine. To add some interest and dimension to the walls, I decided to add some picture frame molding. And I bet you're wondering why I didn't install the molding before I hung the curtains and brought in all of the furniture. Well, here's my reasoning. I wanted to see exactly what wall space I had available to work with because I didn't want to install molding that no one would see anyway. So, for above the headboard, I centered the frame between where the drapes would hang rather than centering it between the window frames. I also centered it vertically between the ceiling line and the top of the headboard. Just like with quarter round, the only angle cuts you need to make are 45-degree angles in the corners. Once I had the molding nailed in place, I caulked the corner seams and the nail holes. I didn't think I needed to caulk along the edges because the molding sat flush with the wall. But if you have any gaps due to uneven walls, you'll want to fill those with caulk too for a neat professional finish. As I worked on installing the molding, Amaya went along behind me, painting it with the brown paint. Since the frame above the headboard was 10.5 inches down from the ceiling and 10.5 inches above the headboard, I used that measurement to space out the framing on the other walls too. On the 2 long walls, I created identical boxes at each end and then made the center box to fit in between them with 10.5 inches on either side. This saved me from having to plan everything out in advance and do a bunch of math. Now, with the hard work done, I was finally ready to add the finishing touches. To create a quick and budget friendly cushion for the window seat, I thrifted an outdoor cushion for $4 and removed the cover. Then I cut the foam down to the size that I needed. I made a new cover using fabric from Walmart. With the fabric turned inside out, I folded it over on itself to create a pillowcase shape, and then I sewed up 3 sides and part of the fourth side on my sewing machine. I turned the fabric right side out and squeezed the cushion in through the one remaining opening. Then I hand sewed that opening closed. To add some sparkle to the room and to coordinate with the glass chandelier, I thrifted 2 vintage cut glass lamps, one with a granite base. The parts were loose, so I cut a hole in the felt on the bottom so I could tighten the nut that holds all the lamp parts together. The second glass lamp was a different style, but about the same size as the first one, and I used matching white shades to unite them. For wall art, I had previously thrifted this bird picture. To repair its cracked frame, I used a combination wood glue and filler product. And while that was drying, I replaced the bird print with art that was more to Amaya's taste. I'll keep the bird print for myself. I just sent an image of clouds to the Walmart Photo Center. The 11 by 16 size was just a little larger than I needed, so I cut it to fit and then I replaced the backing on the frame.
Once the wood filler was dry, I sanded it smooth and then I repainted the entire frame with black acrylic paint. I wanted to hang this picture above the bed. And to make it feel more important and to provide some ambient light, I ordered a battery operated picture light. You can attach it either to the back of your picture or to the wall. This one is magnetic, so you can easily remove it to replace the batteries. And the remote has a variety of color options and timers. I'm definitely ordering some of these for my house. I also thrifted a second vintage frame with a brown oval mat. For this one, I only needed an 8 by 10, so I was able to print out an image on my printer. I found a tree sketch in the public domain that I thought Amaya would like. Once I replaced the backing and bend the staples back down, I like to cover the staples with brown paper packing tape to clean up the back of the frame and to make sure that everything stays in place. I decided to hang this individual picture above the swivel chair and next to the window seat to help draw the eye to this cute corner. For a final piece of artwork, I wanted to frame the wheat pennies that I found in the bedroom vent. First, I cleaned them with Brasso so you could actually see the dates on them. Then I covered the back of a small frame with a scrap of fabric and hot glued the pennies to the fabric. I popped the easel off the frame because I want to hang it on the wall. I decided to hang it on the wall above the vent where I originally found the pennies. For the large sidewall, I hung two botanical prints that were originally purchased at Hobby Lobby and had previously hung in my living room. I knew that the simple black and white canvases would appeal to Amaya's aesthetic. Since the chest of drawers is so tall, the surface won't likely be used to hold practical items, so I knew I could have some fun styling it. And of course, I used all thrift store finds: a vintage mirror, two small decorative suitcases, and candlesticks. Even the pillar candles were thrifted. I kept things more simple on the nightstands: boxes that could be used to hold tissues and remote controls, and just small decorative vases. I left the top of the dresser empty because the kids plan on hanging a TV there. And now, after 7 very busy days, here is the final reveal. This is probably one of the biggest before and after transformations I've ever done. So I'd love to know which change or detail surprised you the most. I hope today's video gave you some ideas you can use in your own home. That's always my goal. Thank you for spending time with me today. Hope to see you next week.